teach at Fujian Catholic University in Taiwan, specializing in the Department of Textiles and Clothing. I'm honored to be a part of this panel, and I want to express my gratitude to Professor Kyung-hee for the invitation. Unfortunately, due to personal reasons, I couldn't attend in person and can only participate through a pre-recorded video. I apologize for this inconvenience. I warmly welcome all of you to visit Fujian Catholic University in Taiwan for future exchanges, as I believe we share common research interests. Thank you. My research topic is Neoqipao in Taiwan from 1975 to 1985, the transformation of craftsmanship and art. My outline will include a brief background of Taiwan's history, the presence of qipao/cheongsam in Taiwan, the concept of Neoqipao and its production methods in the 1970s to 1980s, the evolution of craftsmanship in embroidery and tailoring, and finally, the conclusion. Short background of Taiwan history. Taiwan's history encompasses various distinct eras, each characterized by unique characteristics and developments in political and economic dynamics. The pre-Qing dynasty era reflects the preservation of Taiwanese traditions rooted in Austronesian and Confucianist Han cultures. When examining prehistoric trade, the impact of trade and monsoons extends far beyond imagination. The spread of Taiwan's jade began around 4,000 years ago, as evidenced by jade artifacts found in the Philippines. By 3,000 years ago, Taiwanese jade wares had reached various parts of Southeast Asia, including Vietnam, Thailand, and Malaysia. During the Age of Exploration, when European countries sought spices, silk, and porcelain in the East, Taiwan was officially recognized. In 1542, sailors from a passing Portuguese ship named the island Ilha Formosa. In 1624, the Dutch began their colonization of Taiwan by occupying Taiwan in the southwestern region, where they constructed Fort Zeelandia. The Dutch colonial era in Taiwan witnessed its prosperity as a vital trade hub. Subsequently, the rule of Koxinga and the Qing dynasty brought further changes under Chinese governance. The genre paintings of Taiwan's Aboriginal peoples, painted by Chen Di between 1736 and 1795, depict the Siraya people of Dalilan and Daroko in southern Taiwan. The indigenous peoples had close interactions with mainland Chinese, Japanese traders, and the Dutch. The present-day Siraya tribe has also been influenced by missionaries. Despite this, their unique culture and distinctive attire remain important symbols of Taiwan. Under Qing rule, Chinese culture was introduced, and the imperial examination system was established in Taiwan. By the late 1870s, the influence of Chinese culture could be seen in the daily lives of officials and gentry in Taiwan City. The clothing styles of wealthy individuals in Dagu during the Tongji period reflected similarities to the attire of the Central Plains and South China region. During the Japanese colonial era in Taiwan, which lasted for 50 years after the Qing dynasty ceded Taiwan to Japan in 1895 through the Treaty of Mugwon, a distinct Taiwanese identity began to emerge. This period also saw the silent rise of the cheongsam as a symbol of Chinese culture. In a photo from the late 1930s featuring Pingdong celebrity Zhang Shanzhong and his family, a blend of clothing symbols can be observed, including Japanese-style attire, Western formal wear, school uniforms, and traditional Chinese clothing, with particular emphasis on the cheongsam. Taiwan's history is marked by colonization, trade, cultural influences, and immigration, shaping its unique identity. After World War II, Taiwan experienced significant political changes, becoming a major player in global trade and transitioning into a multi-party democracy. In the 1960s, fashion trends broke conventions with the rise of miniskirts, psychedelic prints, and experimental materials like PVC. Influenced by figures like Jacqueline Kennedy and Andy Warhol, the era saw a mix of styles, from formal Western wear to casual jeans. Beauty pageants and the establishment of department stores and shopping malls played a significant role in shaping fashion trends in Taiwan, with a focus on qipaos and new clothing styles. The era also saw a shift towards gender-neutral and casual clothing, including capri pants and jeans, as well as curve-enhancing evening gowns. Qipao/Cheongsam history in Taiwan. In summary, Taiwan's history has been shaped by diverse factors that have contributed to its distinct cultural heritage and geopolitical position. Now, I will briefly guide you through the past 100 years, focusing on the emergence of the Cheongsam in Taiwan's fashion history. To facilitate our discussion, I will divide it into 10-year intervals. In terms of Chinese clothing history, the Qipao represents a significant transition from flat cutting to three-dimensional cutting. Over the course of nearly 100 years, there have been thorough changes in body perception, aesthetic standards, attitudes towards life, and material applications. In Taiwan, the Qipao drew inspiration from Shanghai in the 1920s to 1940s, Hong Kong in the 1950s, and turned its focus towards the West after the 1960s. The Western Qipao, or Chinese-inspired Eastern styles, promoted in the West after the 1950s also deeply influenced the direction of Qipao in Taiwan. The following will introduce the changes and evolution of Qipao in Taiwan during different time periods. According to the history of the Qipao/Cheongsam in Taiwan, its characteristics, style evolution, and significant changes can be summarized as follows. 1900s to 1910s. The Qipao rose to prominence after 1911 during the early years of the Republic of China. Taiwan was under Japanese rule, and short-sleeved shirts and dresses gradually evolved into long gowns, reflecting a yearning for Chinese culture. By the late 1920s, influenced by Shanghai, the style of the dress noticeably changed. 1920s to 1930s. The trend of the Qipao became more tight-fitting, and inverted large sleeves gained popularity. Shanghai fashion influenced Taiwan through trading ports, and qipaos became a chic and modern look. In the late 1920s and early 1930s, Qipao styles became more fit, with short and tight-fitting sleeves, tight-fitted waistlines, and vibrant colors featuring printed flowers, laces, and ribbons. 1930s to 1940s. The introduction of slits and short sleeves in the Shanghai Qipao led to its popularity. Taiwanese women, known for their fashion forwardness, quickly embraced this new style, making it a common sight on the streets of Taipei. The Japanese authorities recognized the natural and three-dimensional cut of the Chinese women's attire, Cheongsam, but they criticized its lack of healthcare features and the absence of buttons and belts for body shaping. To address these concerns, the tailoring advantages of the Cheongsam were combined with elements of Western skirts, giving rise to Xingye clothing with a Chinese flair. 1940s to 1950s. The silhouette of the Qipao underwent dramatic changes. Ruffled collars, lace, and petticoats beneath the dress became popular. The New Life movement introduced simplicity and frugality due to the Second Sino-Japanese War. In 1949, as the government retreated to Taiwan, the Qipao regained popularity but gradually followed Western tailoring trends, becoming narrower. 1950s to 1960s. Qipao remained popular in Taiwan as the government relocated there officially in 1949. The styles became more influenced by Western fashion trends. The Hong Kong Qipao style became trendy and popular in Taiwan, and custom tailoring and brands emerged. Since the 1950s, Qipao, Cheongsam, gained popularity in Taiwan. 1960s to 1970s. Influenced by the global fashion trends, the length of skirts, including the Qipao, gradually became shorter. This shift reflected the changing styles and preferences of the time, adapting to the popular mini-skirt trend. The Qipao continued to evolve in design, incorporating elements inspired by contemporary fashion. 1970s to 1980s. The Qipao displayed a fusion of traditional elements and modern influences, showcasing the spirit of innovation and adaptability, making it a unique representation of fashion during that era. There was an expansion in the use of innovative fabrics, and the Qipao often featured unique stylistic details. It also became more versatile, suitable for different occasions and settings. 1980s to 1990s, the Taiwan textile industry flourished, producing multicolored printed fabrics and unique patterns embraced by fashion enthusiasts. In the 1990s, the Qipao underwent another transformation and gained international recognition, with brands like Shiatsi Chen making their mark in Paris. 1990s to 2000s, Taiwan entered the new cultural and creative century, and the Qipao became a spotlight in Taiwanese modern and creative industries, known for its uniqueness and charm. Overall, the history of the Qipao in Taiwan reflects its evolution and adaptation to cultural, social, and fashion influences over the years, making it a significant part of Taiwan's fashion heritage. What is Neoqipao and how to make it in the 70s to 80s? The Neoqipao, also known as the modern Qipao or New Qipao, emerged as a reinterpretation of the traditional Qipao during the 1970s and 1980s. It represented a fusion of Western and Eastern fashion elements, incorporating contemporary styles and materials into the traditional Qipao design. Firstly, in terms of Qipao tailoring, the use of new fabrics and three-dimensional cutting techniques transformed the Qipao into a must-have item for music stars, celebrities, and weddings. Secondly, from the perspective of embroidery masters, the bead embroidery originally used for export to Japan was now applied to the entire Qipao or used as decorative elements. This resulted in stunning and eye-catching effects. Lastly, the consumption and wearing of the Neoqipao by singers and television stars contributed to its unique characteristic in Taiwan's Qipao culture. Style and tailoring. Cheongsam has become popular in Taiwan since the 1950s, and Cheongsam masters began to tailor Cheongsam for people. Dadoching, Hengyang Street, Boei Road, Hangzhou Street, and Zhongshan North Road in Taipei City have become gathering places for Cheongsam masters. During this period, the Qipao underwent significant transformations in terms of style and tailoring. The Neoqipao featured a fitted long Qipao with a slender silhouette that allowed for greater color variations and elegance. The length of the dress also became longer, often reaching just below the ankle or covering the shoes. If it was a long-sleeved Qipao, it would often have hidden buttons at the cuffs to ensure a perfect fit. For ease of movement, the side slit of the skirt would usually be higher. The fabrics used for Neoqipao diversified, with designers experimenting with a wide range of materials, including silk, satin, lace, and even synthetic fabrics. These new fabrics offered different textures and patterns, allowing for more creativity in Qipao designs. In order to incorporate embroidery decorations on the Qipao tailor had to create the garment in sections. After taking measurements and determining the placement of the patterns, the tailor would create the basic structure of the Qipao. Then, it would be handed over to the embroidery artisan for further processing. Once the embroidery was completed, the Qipao tailor would assemble the collar and sleeves, finish the edges, and add a zipper. They would also sew the lining and have the customer try on the Qipao for fitting. After making any necessary adjustments, the final touches would be added, such as sewing on decorative buttons. The fabrics used for Neoqipao diversified. The Qipao tailors had a variety of fabrics at their disposal, including silk and velvet. In addition, starting from the 1970s, they began using pre-embroidered fabric imports from mainland China. In the 1980s, there was a wider use of sequined fabric imported from Korea, which served as the foundation for sequin qipaos. The process of making a Neoqipao during the 70s to 80s involved a combination of traditional craftsmanship and modern techniques. Skilled tailors and seamstresses would carefully measure the wearer's body to ensure a perfect fit. The Qipao was then cut and assembled, with attention to details such as the collar, sleeves, and closures. The Qipao tailors would rearrange the sequined fabric patterns on the human body, even incorporating creative tailoring based on the pattern's display, in order to create a suitable Qipao. With the integration of Western-style dress elements into the Qipao, there were more options for patchwork and embellishments, aiming to showcase transparency, nobility, and grandeur. The craft of bead embroidery is a meticulous handmade technique that involves stitching beads or sequins onto fabric to create exquisite designs. Originating in the 1950s when Dachan women settled in Taiwan, bead embroidery gained popularity in Japan's export market during the 1960s. In Taiwan, from 1975 to 1985, bead-embellished sequin and velvet kipaos thrived, thanks to the skillful craftsmanship of Dachan women. The costumes featured dazzling rhinestones and meticulously crafted beadwork, utilizing various materials like beads, sequins, and tubes. Master Ho Zhaohua and her sisters, who learned the art of bead embroidery from their mother, have contributed to preserving this cultural heritage in Taiwan. Many of the needlework techniques in bead embroidery are based on Suzhou embroidery style, with elements of the Xiong embroidery's long and short stitches, as well as the random stitch technique. The use of monochromatic and mixed media further extends to irregular scatter embroidery. Some beadwork is done simultaneously with floral embroidery, while others hang like tassels. There are various embroidery techniques. When embroidering with beads, it is essential to ensure that the beads do not scatter, the pattern remains intact, and the fabric does not wrinkle. The front of the beadwork must conceal the stitches, without revealing any thread traces. The backside stitches should also be neat and regular, allowing for continuous work. Throughout the embroidery process, the needle must frequently go back and forth to create a crisscrossing effect, ensuring that even if the thread breaks, only a few beads will fall off. The process of bead embroidery includes the following steps. 1. Drafting. Using a brush dipped in paint, the base pattern is sketched on the fabric to ensure precise embroidery. 2. Material selection. Based on the design requirements, suitable beads or sequins are chosen, considering color coordination, material selection, and arrangement of shapes and sizes. 3. Setting up the embroidery frame. Adjust the length of the frame. Place the fabric on the frame and secure it with pins to prevent shifting during embroidery. 4. Beading and stitching. Using a needle, beads are threaded and stitched onto the fabric. The number of beads threaded at a time is determined by the length of the base pattern's lines. Different combinations of beads and strategically placed stitches create a three-dimensional effect, meticulously embellishing a splendid world. In bead embroidery, the key tools are the embroidery needle and beads. Needles come in different lengths, with longer ones for stitching longer lines and shorter ones for shorter lines. Initially, bead embroidery mainly used beads and sequins, but it has now expanded to include accessories like rhinestones, crystals, enamels, and rivets. Beads have become smaller, with the popular 15-0 beads measuring just 1 millimeter, demanding excellent eyesight and skills from the bead embroidery masters. In recent years, bead embroidery has introduced new techniques and materials, including half-drilled beads, imitation pearls, resin beads, and various rhinestones such as water diamonds and acrylic rhinestones. Sequins, glass beads, and mirrors offer even more options. Beyond evening gowns, high-end dresses, and wedding gowns, bead embroidery is also used on shoe uppers, shirts, and add a perfect finishing touch. Consumer part. During the Japanese occupation, music halls like Jiangshan Building and Shenfeng were popular gathering places. The famous Jiangshan Building, Dongwifang, and Shenfeng Building during the Japanese colonial period in Taiwan were hotels where gentry, political and business celebrities gathered most often. In the 1950s and 1960s, Taiwan continued the restaurant culture of the Japanese occupation era. The Fengxian restaurant in the photo, the waitress is wearing an elegant cheongsam, and the cheongsam has begun to fit. In the 1950s-60s, Taiwan continued the restaurant culture. After mainland China's migration, Shanghai dancers and singers settled in Taipei. Miss Trade Show. At 1950s to 1960s, the manufacturers who set up booths would hire exhibition girls, and the manufacturers would also hold fan autograph sessions for The popular exhibition girls. Miss Tradeshow Girl wears either a cheongsam or a knee-length dress. Her appearance should be dignified and generous, and she often emphasizes inner qualities such as good conduct and gentleness and courtesy. Traditional music halls emphasized vocal talent, with singers gaining popularity in Japan and Southeast Asia. Guests were well-dressed and courteous. The first music hall, Guojibin, opened in 1961 with lavish decor and renowned performers. Later, more luxurious music halls emerged in Ximending. Despite the rise of new entertainment forms, music halls maintained etiquette. Government crackdowns led to their decline, but in the 1970s-80s, they experienced a resurgence, with 16 music halls in Ximending alone. Mei Gui Feng, a studio specializes in high-end custom-made evening gowns and performance costumes with exquisite bead embroidery. Collaborating with renowned artists like Cui Taijing, Teresa Tang, and Jolin Tsai, they showcase their creativity and craftsmanship in kipaos, formal dresses, and stage costumes. Their notable works include the silver tube outfit worn by Cui Taijing, created by Hu Meigui. Sequin kipaos were popular, with metallic colors like silver, gold, and red, using durable plastic sequins. Teresa Tang, a beloved Taiwanese pop singer, had meticulously crafted custom-made kipaos, reflecting her impeccable fashion taste. Teresa Tang had a special affinity with qipao, as they made up the majority of her stage costumes. Even during her performances in Japan, Teresa Tang often wore qipao. At that time, the embroidered kipaos were fully embellished with embroidery work. From her photos, it can be seen that the embroidery artisans specifically designed patterns and styles based on Teresa Tang's body shape. Some of the kipaos even had embroidery on both sides of the body, creating a sense of framing. Combined with Teresa Tang's slender figure and fair complexion, the kipaos became even more representative of the era. In addition to that, sequin kipaos are also used in wedding attire. Typically, during weddings, the bride not only wears a white wedding gown but also has a separate outfit for the send-off. In the 1970s and 1980s, brides would visit qipao shops to have their outfits customized. Mei Gui Feng would display photos in these shops, and customers could choose a design number. The orders would then be sent to the skilled Dachin women to create. Due to the immense popularity at the time, Dachin women from all over Taiwan started working as subcontractors for bead embroidery. In the 1990s, with the rise of renting wedding gowns and the commercialization of ready-to-wear kipaos, the business of sequin kipaos shifted towards tourism. According to qipao master Xiao Mingzhi's memory, during the 1990s, there were Japanese tourists who specifically came to Taiwan to order bead-embroidered kipaos. At that time, many orders were received from tourists. However, the patterns chosen by these tourists were not Mei Gui Feng's designs. Nevertheless, they were still entrusted with the production of the bead embroidery part. After 2000, Taiwan's bead embroidery subcontracting moved to Vietnam, China, Guangzhou, Xiamen, Dongguan, and other locations. Consequently, bead embroider focus shifted towards developing exquisite wedding gowns, high-end custom-made dresses, or time-sensitive and highly customized celebrity stage costumes. The transformation of craftsmanship in embroidery and tailoring played a significant role in the dramatic and creative evolution of Taiwanese qipao, particularly in sequin qipao, against the backdrop of Taiwan's history and political situation in the 1970s. In terms of material turn, there has been a diversification in the types of beads and sequins used. This allows for a wider range of color combinations and textures, making the sequin qipao more visually stunning and captivating. The availability of a wide range of sequins and beads allowed for experimentation and creativity in qipao design. The political climate of the time, with Taiwan's growing international presence and economic development, provided access to diverse materials and inspirations from around the world. This led to the incorporation of luxurious and eye-catching sequins, resulting in the dramatic and vibrant sequin qipao. In terms of body turn, the development of three-dimensional embroidery techniques has enabled the creation of intricate and elaborate designs on the qipao. This adds depth and dimension to the patterns, making them more visually striking and captivating. Skilled tailors and embroiderers embraced new methods, create intricate patterns and textures on the qipao. The focus shifted from traditional flat embroidery to dynamic and visually striking designs that highlighted the wearers. Figure. This transformation reflected Taiwan's growing confidence and self-expression during the politically charged period. During the social and cultural transformation, the creativity in sequin qipao was influenced by various cultures and styles. Taiwanese qipao designers and craftsmen drew inspiration from movie stars and other sources, resulting in unique and innovative designs. This cultural exchange and fusion transformed the qipao into a symbol of cultural connection and a reflection of Taiwanese society. Furthermore, the economic miracle of Taiwan in the 1970s brought a positive and optimistic attitude in people's lives, despite the turbulent international situation, thanks to the influence of music singers and celebrities. Overall, the transformation of craftsmanship in embroidery and tailoring, along with the exploration of materials, body turn techniques, and social/cultural influences, led to the dramatic and creative expressions seen in Taiwanese sequin qipao. It reflected the changing political landscape, increased access to global influences, and the desire for self-expression and cultural exploration during the 1970s and 1980s. Conclusion: this research highlights the significant points of the transformation of Taiwanese qipao craftsmanship in the 1970s. It emphasizes the influence of social and cultural factors, as well as the incorporation of global influences. The outcomes demonstrate the dramatic and creative nature of sequin qipao, reflecting cultural fusion and innovation. This study also fills the gaps in previous research. From the literature review, previous studies on qipao have focused on historical aspects, exploring its origins, changes, and issues related to modernity. However, there has been limited research on the collaboration between qipao tailors and bead embroidery craftsmen, examining the local and unique characteristics of qipao craftsmanship in Taiwan. Special thanks. This research would not have been possible without the invaluable contributions of qipao master Xiaomingzhi, bead embroidery masters Hu Mailin and the Hu Meihua sisters, the qipao collection at the Fujian Catholic University's Textile and Clothing Culture Center, as well as the assistance provided by Su Xiajia, Chen Shani, and Lin Junpei.